Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with all of you today. It is incredible to come to a room that is packed with this many people because I grew up in a little teeny tiny town on the eastern plains of Colorado. Where are my Coloradans at? Scattered throughout? Are they all over here? Very good. A little tiny town on the eastern plains that this room has more people in it than that little tiny town. So it's a little bit intimidating. I remember the day we got a third stoplight. We were big time at that point. But the credit union in my town has been a fixture in our community, and we have been involved through a variety of levels and means with our credit union. I'll never forget how proud I was to open up my first checking account at the Yuma County Federal Credit Union. And I remember how proud I was to get that check open before my first date to prom. And I'll never forget that when I paid for dinner after that first prom date, I didn't have any money left in the checking account. But it was still big time, so thank you very much. We had to, of course, my father served on the board of our local credit union. One of our business loans, most significant business loans that we ever took was through our local credit union when we moved from our downtown location up onto the highway. And when I say downtown location up onto the highway, it was a whopping 4-block move, but still, in that little town, it was a big deal. Our family sells farm equipment, and we moved the equipment dealership up onto the highway, and the credit union was a major part of our success and our ability to make that move. Now, also growing up, though, we had a choir, and we had a fundraiser for our choir. And one of the things that we did was we painted the wall at the credit union to raise money for the choir. Now, two things about that I learned. Number one, you never want to hear me sing. Number two, you probably don't want to see the result of the paint job either. So those are the two things that we learned at that trip. But thank you very much for being an incredibly important part of our economy, our community, and the members that you serve, making it possible for that young high schooler to open up a checking account, to learn what it means to start a savings account, a certificate of deposit, to receive my first car loan through that credit union, the responsibility of savings, the responsibility of economic growth, understanding interest, and the work that goes with a credit union. Thank you for being a part of the great American recovery. If you think about the work we've done in Colorado, 2.5% unemployment, one of the lowest unemployment rate we've had in the history of our state. We have more people off of the sidelines into the workforce than any other time going back for years. Business growth and business confidence is at the highest level it's been in a very long time. And if you think about the incredible investments that we have seen in credit unions, that growth continues on and on. And if you think about the opportunities we've had to grow our economy, we're growing now with business investments and others, $4 trillion per quarter, which if you look in terms of fixed capital investment, we've stayed at around $4 trillion per quarter, and that is significantly above the growth that was projected just a few years ago by the Congressional Budget Office. That's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars into our economy, going into credit unions, returned back into small business growth, job creation, and the opportunities that we have to lift people up and out of poverty and into higher paying jobs with wage growth that help realize the American dream. So thank you very much for being a part of that. I want to thank you for being a part of the significant job creation that we've seen over the past several years. In January alone, we've added 225,000 jobs to the economy, and that growth continues. And while the labor participation rate remains too low, we've seen it rise, we've seen it grow, more people on the sidelines. And one of the most remarkable things about our economy today remains the fact that people are now willing to give up a job that they have held on to, that they have enough job security and confidence in this economy, that they are willing to take a risk and go to a job that they think will be better for themselves and their family, leaving the job that they may have had for a number of years because they are confident enough in the economy today that they can take that new job, make a risk, and it will benefit their family and themselves and their future. And that is a sure sign of confidence in our economy. Thank you to the Credit Union National Association for the work that you have done rolling back the regulations that were stifling economic growth, that were stifling investment, that were stifling the hands of our key leaders in our economy. Because you're a big part of why our economy is growing and why we have made progress on issues like Dodd-Frank and rolling back some of the most onerous barriers to investment in our economy. I serve as the chairman of the East Asia Subcommittee on Foreign Relations. I also serve on that committee working in international cyber security issues. And I know the big challenge that we face when it comes to cyber security. While a JP Morgan or a Wells Fargo may be able to spend billions of dollars dealing with cyber issues and threats in entire departments, I look at our community and I look at our credit union and know they are doing everything they can to protect the investments that they make to protect our communities. And you as an association are working hard on cybersecurity, but you need an effective partner in the federal government to make sure that we continue to provide advice, resources, and protection to the credit union industry to make sure that we are doing what we can on cybersecurity. There's one guy very interested right here, thank you, in cybersecurity. And so we need to make sure that we have a pro-growth cybersecurity plan, that we don't regulate credit unions out of business, but we make sure that we're working in partnership with credit unions, that we make sure that we have common sense privacy protections, not a patchwork quilt of regulations around the country, that we have an understanding of what it means when it comes to privacy. I have supported at my time in the state, in the U.S. Senate, legislation that would create a standalone cyber committee, a cybersecurity committee. You know, we have an ag committee, we have an education committee. We ought to take a look at what we can do for a standalone cybersecurity committee to make sure that we have all of the expertise brought to bear on one single committee. I also want to talk to you about something that I never thought that I would become an expert in, and that's marijuana. This is something that I opposed in Colorado when the legalization question arose several years back. I didn't support legalization of marijuana, but the people of Colorado chose to move forward on legalization. And now, as a result, 47 out of 50 states have legalized some form of cannabis. It is a challenge that we have to rise to meet. We can't ignore it. We can't be, there's a couple things Congress is there's a lot of things Congress is really bad at. But there's one thing Congress is really good at, and that's sticking its head in the sand and hoping a problem goes away. This is a challenge. My cybersecurity friend's excited about that one too. This is a challenge that we cannot just wish away. We have to address marijuana banking and cannabis issues before us. So I've introduced two pieces of legislation, one called the States Act. The States Act would simply say that if you are a state that has legalized cannabis in any form, then that state, it's no longer a prohibited act, it's no longer an illegal action in that state, which means it basically is preempted from federal law. And so the restrictions on banking, the restrictions that would prevent a credit union from having access to this market would simply go away. The 280E tax issues would all go away. That's one approach. The other approach is the Safe Banking Act. This bill has passed out of the House. I'm the lead Republican sponsor in the Senate. Senator Merkley and I are working every day to move this bill closer and closer to a reality, which would of course provide the certainty that credit unions need in order to do business with the cannabis industry. 47 out of 50 states, as I mentioned, have legalized some form of cannabis. The 3 states that have not are all on the United States Senate Banking Committee. So we got a little bit more work to do, but I am pleased to comment on the progress that Senator Crapo has made. Senator Crapo, Senator Merkley and I have made a great deal of progress in finding common ground on the details of the Safe Banking Act. We are working through some of the objectives that Senator Crapo has in terms of safety, research, guidances that they would like to see the state meet, but we're doing it in a way that respects states' rights, that respects the voters of our many states that have moved forward on this, and I believe that in a matter of months we can actually have a vote on a compromise version in the Senate that will have support of 60-plus members of my colleagues and will have the support of the House of Representatives. I'm going to tell you a little secret that you may never have heard before. You can't always believe everything you read in the press. So, what does that mean? That means that while some publications want to write about how they don't see any hope or they don't see an opportunity for the safe banking bill to move forward, I see great opportunity for it. I am very optimistic about this legislation moving forward. We're close to finding that common ground, getting everybody signed off to move this forward. And when we do that, and the reason it's so important that we do that is because we need to get this all-cash economy into the disinfectant of sunlight, out of the shadows, and get some transparency so we can put it into our financial system systems so we know exactly what is happening and where it is going. And once we do that, the challenge of having $2 billion a year in Colorado in cash, we've taken care of that. We've taken care of that challenge for California and other states, so I am pleased that we'll be making progress on that. So thank you for being an enormous part of our communities. I see my time has expired. Thank you for being a part of our successes, our small towns, our big towns. There is plenty of room in our nation's economic policy. There is plenty of opportunity in our nation's financial sector for credit unions to thrive, to grow, and to continue the investments in our wonderful, great nation. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be with all of you today, and enjoy this sunny Washington day. Thanks.